Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, a new report details the abuse suffered by hostages after October 7th, plus the discovery of an underground missile factory in Syria built to supply arms to Hezbollah. Analysis from Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Denon, and former PLO sniper Taysir Saada. And hope for the future. College students share strategies for supporting Israel on their campuses. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl. Hamas is changing its position in the hostage negotiations again. This comes as a new report details the abuse hostages have suffered at the hands of the terror group. Another development this week is the release of information about an underground missile manufacturing facility in Syria. Here's the latest on these stories. Israel's health ministry submitted a report to the United Nations this week documenting the testimony that comes from former hostages about the physical, sexual, and psychological abuse they suffered in Gaza. Women, men, and children say the abuse included beatings, isolation, deprivation of food and water, branding, hair pulling, and sexual assault. Natan Sharansky, who spent 9 years in Soviet prison for spreading the truth about human rights abuses in the former Soviet Union, told CBN News the report exposes the hypocrisy in the world's thinking.
Women's organizations who are not ready to accept that if rapists are from the oppressed and the raped women are oppressors, then it's not a crime in their eyes.
Sharansky says the report is hard to read.
It can remind people why our struggle is so justified and why we are not ready to stop the struggle as long as our hostages are in their hands and as long as our security is not guaranteed.
In the negotiations to free the remaining hostages, Hamas is demanding a week-long ceasefire and several days into it says it will release a partial list of hostages still in Gaza. Israel's defense minister threatens more war if Hamas doesn't start freeing hostages soon.
The IDF will intensify and strengthen its activities against the nests of terrorism in Gaza until the hostages are released and Hamas is eliminated.
More than 100 Israel Defense Forces soldiers raided and dismantled an Iranian-backed underground compound for manufacturing precision missiles inside Syria. The Special Israel Air Force operation took place on September 8, 2024, and was just revealed this week.
This was a significant event for the existence of Israel, no less.
Iran funded and supported the establishment of the weapons manufacturing compound intended to produce hundreds of missiles per year for the Syrian armed forces and Hezbollah. It was Iran's flagship project for arming its terror proxies on Israel's northern border. Israel says it monitored the site for years before the recent operation to destroy it.
We can be proud and we can tell future generations that we did something significant for the security of Israel.
The soldiers were brought to the site and picked up after the operation by Israeli helicopters with support from the Air Force and Navy. The entrance was through the side of a mountain. The forces discovered advanced assembly lines and critical machinery for manufacturing precision missiles and long-range rockets. They also found weapons and intelligence documents, which were transferred for investigation. The soldiers destroyed the compound and safely returned to Israeli territory. Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi said there was good reason to send such a large force to a distant land, and they were confident they would succeed.
This site is about to start producing, each year, a very large quantity of missiles, which would pose a significant problem to Israel's security. They will be scattered to different places and land in various hands, and we have no intention of allowing that to happen.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is recovering from surgery, released a statement commending the soldiers for the heroic operation, saying, "This was one of the most important preventive operations that we have taken against the efforts of the Iranian Axis to arm itself in order to attack us. It attests to our boldness and determination to take action everywhere to defend ourselves." The world lost an Olympian gold medalist this week. 103-year-old Israeli-Hungarian Agnes Coletti died this week, just shy of her 104th birthday. May her memory be a blessing. Agnes began her career as a gymnast in the 1930s, but World War II interrupted her career. The Holocaust took her father and other relatives and made her and her sister and her mother refugees. After the war, when she was in her 30s, she resumed gymnastics and won 5 gold medals in the 1952 and 1956 Olympics. She immigrated to Israel in 1957 and began a new chapter as a teacher and coach.
I wish you all good health. Health is the most important. Without it, there is nothing.
Coming up, analysis from Israel's UN Ambassador Danny Denon on Irish anti-Semitism and developments in Syria. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Denon, is on the front lines of the battle against anti-Semitism. CBN President Gordon Robertson caught up with him recently for an update. Take a look.
Ireland is trying to change the definition of genocide in order to pursue charges against Israel. What are those definitional changes, and how will that affect you?
Well, you know, Ireland, they are coming against us for years. That's why we decided to close the embassy in Dublin. We said enough is enough. We are not taking it anymore. And look what you mentioned about the genocide. You know, it's clear that there is no genocide in Gaza. And when you look at the definition of genocide, you have to look at the intention. And everybody knows there is no intention from our side. On the contrary, we do everything we can to minimize civilian casualties. We supply thousands of trucks into Gaza every month to support the population. So they know that according to international law, it's baseless accusation. So what they are doing now, they said, let's change it. Let's change the definition so we can blame Israel for genocide. You know, that's pure anti-Semitism. When you apply different standards against Israel, that's anti-Semitism. And that's shameful that today Ireland became, you know, one of the main actors against Israel and against the Jewish people.
What would you tell the average American? You have a lot of supporters watching you right now. What can they do practically to help Israel today?
So first, you know, we are grateful for the support. You know, I receive it wherever I go from many, many Americans, and we are grateful for that. But we have to realize that we haven't finished the job. You know, we had major successes. We have to bring back all the hostages, but we also have to deal with Iran, because otherwise they will continue with that. They will pay more money to their proxies, and they will make sure Hezbollah will be able to rebuild their capabilities. They will go back into Syria, into Jordan. So in order for us to bring peace to the region, we have to deal with Tehran. We have to deal with Iran. That will be the main challenge of the new administration. And I hope and believe that together we'll be able to contain this threat and to make sure that Iran is not capable of spreading chaos anymore.
Well, I do have to point out as well, it seems like Israel is on the verge of tremendous victory. Not just against Hamas. Hezbollah has been decimated. Syria is in the middle of historic change. What's the likelihood of a change in government in Iran?
So, you know, if we would have spoken a month ago, and I would tell you that there's a chance for a rebellion in Syria against Assad, you would tell me it sounds impossible because it's a cruel regime. You know, they torture, they kill, and nobody is taking to the streets, going to the streets. Similar to the situation today in Iran. But I think there is hope. And yesterday, when I spoke in the Security Council, I actually approached the Iranian people. And I told them, we respect you. We respect your history. And now it's your turn to take action. We will be with you, but you have to take actions against the regime. And you know, the regime spends billions on terror instead of investing it in the Iranian people. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that we can see a change in Iran also.
Well, I want to sound a note of caution as well. I remember the Arab Spring. I remember the promise of democracy in the Middle East. But then Egypt elected the Muslim Brotherhood. And so I'm concerned with the groups in Syria, particularly those that are offshoots of ISIS that have pledged we're going to Jerusalem. Do you share that concern? And I assume Israel is preparing on its northern border for any anticipated threat from Syria.
Absolutely. You know, I think some of the European countries fell in love with the new forces in Syria, and they have to be careful about it. Those are bad actors. You know, when you look about their history, the connection to Al-Qaeda, to radical jihadi groups, they are not peaceful players. Maybe in the short run, you know, it will be peaceful and quiet, but I'm sure in the long run they will come against us. That's why we deployed more forces to our border on the Golan Heights. We are on high alert, and we send them a message that we will not allow them to build presence next to our border like Hezbollah did in Lebanon.
Up next, a former sniper for PLO founder Yasser Arafat shares his thoughts on events in Gaza and what could lie ahead. The question on everyone's mind right now is what's next for Gaza after the war. CBN senior reporter Gary Lane spoke with former PLO member Taysir Saada about possible future scenarios.
Taysir Saada is a former PLO sniper and aide to Yasser Arafat. In the 1990s, he came to faith in Jesus Christ. Today, he is founder of the Christian Hope of Peace Foundation. His story is told in the book, Once an Arafat Man. Tass, it's good to talk with you, so let's look forward to the day after Israel's war against Hamas. Explain what you see happening spiritually in Gaza.
I do believe we're going to have a lot of revival, a lot of believers coming through. It's already happening today, as far as I know from my team on the ground. Many Muslims are looking for an alternative to Islam. And so naturally, my team are always promoting Christianity and their life whenever it's safe. And so we're looking at a good revival going on already in the Gaza Strip due to what has happened, really. Despite of the destruction that is taking place, I believe God have a purpose to get the Palestinians in Gaza wake up and look at a different alternative to what they believe.
How about during the war as it's continuing? Our hearts turning. What do you see happening?
So. I just got a report from one of my team members that about 200 Gazans gave their heart to Jesus in one lump sum, because the Lord appeared to them in visions and dreams, and they were hugging each other and you know, rejoicing, and realized that all of them had the same vision that each one of them had. And so obviously the Lord is doing his work, and the believers around also in the land are doing their work.
Well, looking forward then again, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Turkey are offering to help reconstruct and govern Gaza after the war. So what do you think of that idea?
Qatar will be a better alternative from what they have as their own leadership. The Palestinian Authority is really not the answer. They are not interested anyway. Qatar or United Arab Emirates, they all don't like each other. But yet, when it comes to the Palestinian, they all come together. And so, you know, I think Qatar is taking the lead. They are doing a lot more talk to the Israelis. And I think what Qatar has done in Doha, I grew up in Doha, Qatar. I went there a couple of times. I did not find my ways because it changed so much.
Tass, aren't they hosting Hamas Haven't they helped create Hamas and be part of the whole Muslim Brotherhood thing?
They did. That's a big concern. I'm glad you bring that up. And I really believe all of these Arab nations are in allowing Israel to do what they need to do, because they are tired of this issue, the Palestinian issue, and they want to see a solution. And by destroying Hamas entirely and turning over the Gaza Strip to Qatar or the United Arab Emirates, Gaza Strip would become eventually, it'll be another Singapore. And that's what I'm hoping for.
As you know, Secretary of State Blinken and President Biden are pushing a two-state solution. So two-state or one state, which would work better?
I don't believe in the two-state solution. From the beginning, from early days of my salvation, when I read the Bible, there is no two states. There is one state, Israel, for both to live equally and justly. And I believe, I'm working with the Israeli team and Palestinian team myself, are talking about a federation. And we have already created all the ways how we can get it done. The Arabs have not done that much for me, to be honest about it. Israel have, looking at what Israel has done in the years that Israel have been established, look at where they're at and where the Palestinians are. I would rather to be united with Israel and give the Palestinians equal rights within the Palestinian. That's the idea of the federation that we are working on with my Israeli team. This federation will be an equal justice for all Israelis and Palestinians to live equally and justly. Israelis are worried that if this federation idea takes place, then the numbers of the Muslims will be higher. And that's not true. That's not true. The federation will not include the Gaza Strip and take the West Bank and make it as part of Israel and create a federation of Israel and Palestine together into one nation. I believe the Palestinians will be much better off. Their leaders have not done anything. Yeah. From Mahmoud Abbas on, and before that, Yasser Arafat. The people around him who are now leading, they are the crooks, to be honest about it. And they robbed their people.
Okay, we'll see what transpires in the days ahead, and we'll keep praying. Taysir Saada, thank you for your time and insights. God bless you.
Thank you, and pray for the Federation.
Still ahead, a new generation rising. College students strategize about combating anti-Semitism on their campuses. Several dozen North American college students recently visited Israel to learn how to counter hatred of Jews and the Jewish nation. Paul Strand joined them and brings us this report.
It's widely acknowledged that students in the Western world are facing more anti-Semitism on their campuses and in their lives than maybe ever before. Well, where better to learn how to fight it than right here in the Jewish homeland? The Jewish students from the U.S. and Canada traveled across Israel to end up at this day-long seminar. They learned how to more effectively address anti-Israel and anti-Jewish activism. Angela Palumbo experienced it her first day at college.
It started against my beliefs and targeting how I felt about Israel, but then quickly became comments about my appearance, use that dirty Zionist money to get a nose job, save some oxygen for the rest of us.
David Lederer witnessed it at Columbia University, center of possibly the most radical anti-Jewish activism on an American campus.
Me walking to class, someone yells at me, Zionists get no, and an explicit B word, just like yelling at Jewish people. I have a friend personally who just walked into a dining hall and they said, they got an F you Jew. Like very explicitly anti-Jewish, even though they'll try to say it's just about Zionists and Zionism, it's very explicitly been a very hostile environment for Jewish students on campus.
Michael Eglash helped organize the seminar and trip.
Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, right? So if you don't believe in the right for the Jewish people to have a homeland in their ancient homeland of Israel, then that's anti-Semitic, because all people should have the right to go back to their ancestral homeland and live, and right to prosper and what have you. So those people that are telling you they're anti-Zionists, they're anti-Semites.
And I have definitely experienced it.
Canadian Amanda Yakubovitz worries about a more subtle anti-Semitism, such as when a fellow student questioned just how Jewish the Holocaust was.
You know, the Holocaust, so many people died, and he was very much just, what he was saying was negating the actual Jewish connection to the Holocaust.
Jewish students are under attack on the campuses, and they're made to feel very insecure and uncomfortable.
Eglash first experienced it as a student in the 1990s.
Extreme left-wing organizations that were out there that were putting up swastikas, equating it with the Star of David, or at times they were intimidating students. So if you wear a Star of David, they would come up to you and say, how can you wear that symbol? You must support Israel.
When in Israel, these students experienced realities much different from the propaganda spouted on their campuses.
So a lot of the remarks we hear is that October 7th either never happened, or in Israel we face apartheid, colonialism, ethnic cleansing. And so walking around the streets and seeing the street signs that are in English, Arabic, and Hebrew automatically disproves that claim. Seeing the kibbutzim that were destroyed and seeing the Nova Music Festival site and all of the people taking from us early, it's hard to not acknowledge the facts when you see them firsthand.
You see it firsthand on the ground. It's nothing at all what they're talking about on campus, and it's important to see it.
Natan Sharansky has been one of the world's lead fighters against anti-Semitism. He told these students the best way to battle it is to proudly stand up for their Jewish identity and their Jewish nation.
There is no way in today's world to keep your proud identity without understanding that Israel is the heart of this identity. So obvious that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism goes together. And I have to say, as in the past, everything depends on you.
Yakubovitz is definitely on board for that.
For me, I wear it on my sleeve. Within 5 minutes of knowing me, you know that I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli, I speak Hebrew, and I'm so excited about it.
Lederer had a special message for Christians.
Jewish students have been forced out of the clubs, out of student government, out of various sectors of the university. And the only allies we have that can understand us and can talk to us are the Christian students. I just want to say thank you to my Christian neighbors. I hope you had a happy holidays.
Most of these students were already Jewish activists, but now they return to their states and provinces with more weapons to fight anti-Semitism when they get there. Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
What a wonderful trip and opportunity for the students to strategize with Israeli hero Natan Sharansky. He's currently the chairperson of Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, and the students' trip was organized by Hasbara Fellowships in partnership with IsraelAmbassadors.com. Well, the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah ended this week, and in honor of the season, the Israel Antiquities Authority just put a rare 4th century oil lamp on display. It was discovered near the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. It's significant because it's evidence of a Jewish presence around Jerusalem 1,700 years ago. Here's the story.
You won't believe it. Nothing short than a Hanukkah miracle. During excavations in the Mount of Olives, we uncovered a lamp decorated with the 7-branch menorah, the temple menorah. The 7-branch menorah, on one side, the incense shovel from the temple, and the lulav, the palm branch, symbols of ancient Jewry. This lamp is of a type dated to the 3rd, 4th century, and it's even more unique that we know where it was produced. It was probably produced in the production center known as Beit Natif. The Beit Natif lamps are well known from their stone molds. They would have been carved for an upper and a lower proportion. After the clay was molded inside the mold, they would be pressed together, creating a complete vessel. The menorah already became a Jewish symbol during the Second Temple period. But after the destruction of the Bar Kokhba revolt, Jews found a need to identify themselves from other Christian and pagan ethnic groups that were beginning to develop in the region. The menorah was chosen by the Jews as a collective memory icon. This find is a personal connection. Person who owned it 1,700 years ago may have felt like he's lighting the temple lamp that only his ancestors got to see. Today, many people have a tradition to light a Chanukiah as a vessel to remind them and connect them with the temple 7-branch menorah, And that's what we see here on this lamp.
That's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and you can access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And please, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and for the release of the hostages held in Gaza. Remember, the God who watches over Israel, and you and me, neither slumbers nor sleeps. I'm Julie Stahl. For all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.